Good afternoon, friends. It's Friday, November 6th, and I'm back in the worship space for our daily reflection. It's election week, and to state the obvious, we're still waiting for results. Patience, patience, patience. Hey, one of the side benefits, for me at least, for this COVID-19 stuff, is all of the virtual worship services that are being posted that I now get to experience. And so I've been worshiping with a number of congregations since the summer began. I regularly watch services from Connecticut, Minnesota, Arizona, and 2 other ELCA congregations here in California. I love to see and hear how the pastors in those faith communities tackle the readings for the day and craft their sermon. I try to imagine what resources they're using as they prepare their sermons. I listen to hear what issues each congregation is facing in this time. And there are times when I wish that those services would be posted earlier, like Saturday, especially for those who are doing YouTubing, because I could have appropriated some of their material in my sermon as well. I noticed that everybody last Sunday had All Saints Day, well, almost everybody had All Saints Day sermon for their congregation. Not surprising to see the loyalty many of us have toward that common lectionary series. One church has its own lectionary plan, so that sermon was slightly different, but nonetheless, during the prayers, they mentioned all of the saints in their community, just as we did. There is strength in that bond we share as we hear the same biblical passages read across the country. Mary was a new member of Thanksgiving Lutheran in Santa Rosa. She came from an unchurched background. She was told by her mother that indeed she was baptized when she was just weeks old because Grandma wanted it. But then, since the insurance policy had been purchased and paid in full, water poured, her family didn't go to church much, not even on Christmas and Easter, unless Grandma was in town or they went to visit Grandma and she dragged them to church. But Mary connected with Joan and I through Alex. She was the director of the preschool where he attended. And I don't recall the conversation or the event or events that caused Mary to wonder more about this faith thing and what it could mean for her. But she showed up one Sunday, and then again the next Sunday. After a few weeks, we started a conversation about faith, and I learned her story. She joined the congregation and involved herself in many of the activities, including our adult forum class. She was hungry to learn and mature in her faith. She was there every Sunday, and like many good Lutherans, she always sat in the same spot. She had claimed her chair. By this time, Alex had moved on to elementary school, so I didn't get to see Mary every day as I had, or twice if I picked Alex up after school. So when Mary missed 3 Sundays in a row, I wondered what was going on. A phone call to her phone left me having to leave a message on her voicemail because, that's before everybody had cell phones. And then on the 4th Sunday, Mary was back at church in her assigned chair. After worship, she asked me if I had any bulletins from the last 3 weeks. And I said, absolutely. I found them, handed them to her, and I was a little surprised that she bypassed the first couple of pages, which is the announcements and calendar page, and went right to the readings. As I stood there puzzling what she was looking for, she said, wow, this is interesting. You read the same things here that I heard in the church where I was. I asked her about that. Well, it seems that she went to visit her boyfriend in another state, and he took her to his congregation. Now, when Mary asked the next question, Do all pastors read the same passages? I asked her for a little more clarification. What do you mean by that? She again reminded me that she'd been in another congregation, another ELCA congregation, and she'd heard the same things. And why was it that we all used the same words? Well, then I began to explain to her a little bit about the Common Lectionary series. That's the series of readings that we use here at Shepherd of the Hills. It's a 3-year cycle. You work your way through one of the Gospels each year, and the Gospel of John shows up during the Easter season all the time. I said that I appreciate that lectionary series because it prevents me from always pushing my agenda and rather listening to where God is calling us. Because every 3 years, it's a different place. However, as I have listened to the sermons over the last couple of months, I realize that all the preachers have a certain direction that sermons take. Mine are frequently about stewardship or discipleship, and I heard similar things, but with different emphases. One pastor was very clear about social justice and how important that is. Another pastor talked about how it was important to keep maturing in faith. I can't remember how many sermons I heard where he plugged in this piece about growing in your faith, or how many sermons on the social justice piece that she plugged in about taking care, about protesting or showing up or being with others. We each have our own agendas, our own emphases. I was also struck by how many of them consistently use the gospel text, even though I chose to use Romans because it was an ongoing reading over the summer, and we don't frequently hear sermons from Romans. I was hoping some of them would, adding a little more to my Romans storylines. These services also reminded me that we don't see everything the same, even though we have a common denominator. We're all Lutheran pastors. We all have the same path to become ordained ministers. There's college, then there's seminary, 4 years of each. It's an education process for us Lutheran pastors. I'd even bet that that we've all read the same textbooks over the years. Well, maybe some of the younger ones read a different version or different authors, but I'll bet you it was the same messaging. Yet, in all of those differences, we all hear God speak to us in local environments, in local ways. Our communities of faith are unique, even if we are at least 50 miles apart, as in the case of one of the ELCA congregations I listen to. Yet, those pastors emphasize something a little different. They're an urban setting. Me, suburban. Now, while I did hear a variety of examples of saintly lives in the 4 sermons I listened to over this past week, I also heard that how we are all saints of God. The unity amidst the differences. And so as I await, and as you await the final vote tally this week, I know that we have different expectations, different stories, different dreams, different hopes. Yet we are all part of one larger community. We call that the United States. Our local uniqueness notwithstanding, we're wanting something. We're wanting an end. We're wanting a difference, perhaps. But we're wanting a resolution. Hey, I look forward to seeing you in a couple of days on Sunday morning. I'm back here in the midst of the worship space, and I can see your wonderful faces, at least those of you who have sent pictures of you as we worship at Shepherd of the Hills. But I look forward also to reading your comments. I'm excited about the fact that Jesse and JD will be, again, live streaming, and that the YouTube version will be up later. And I don't have to do anything for it anymore. Yay! But until we see each other on Sunday, please, 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 wash your hands 4 or 5 times a day, 20 seconds at a time. Use hand lotion to keep them nice and soft. Wear your masks when you go out in public. Stay that 6 feet apart from one another unless you're with your family. And then, of course, as I've always said, make sure you love one another. And wearing a mask is also a sign of love. And most importantly, if you're sick, please stay home. Get well. I don't want you to get sicker. And I'll dismiss you as Sergeant Esterhaus always does. Be safe out there.